Narcissists and manipulators project strength constantly, but the entire structure holding that projection together runs on fear, and the thing that threatens it most is something most people already carry without knowing how to aim it. I need you to hear this right now. Rage, silent treatment, guilt, gaslighting. Every one of these tactics serves a single function: shielding a self-image that collapses the moment it touches reality. Psychotherapist Dr. Les Carter spent nearly 4 decades conducting over 60,000 counseling sessions, and across all of them identified one consistent pattern. Anger is the emotion narcissists show most often, but fear is the force actually producing it. What reads as dominance from the outside is a person who feels destabilized by something as minor as a disagreement, a boundary, or a question nobody warned them was coming. First, the fear running underneath every outburst you have ever witnessed. Richard Grannon, a psychologist who built his career around narcissistic abuse recovery, frames the entire narcissistic personality as a structure organized around the false self, a concept originally introduced by psychologist Donald Winnicott. That false self is a fabricated, inflated identity the narcissist treats as real, superior, magnetic, incapable of being wrong, always steering the room. Every relationship they enter, every conversation they redirect, every emotional reaction they provoke in you exists to keep that constructed image intact. The moment reality slips through and contradicts that image, Grannon calls what happens next narcissistic mortification. Not frustration, not irritation, mortification, a response so disproportionate it registers as existential to the person experiencing it. Most people absorb criticism, sit with disagreement, or accept being wrong without their entire sense of self-fracturing. A narcissist lacks that capacity because the false self carries no shock absorbers. What looks like a small crack to everyone else feels structural to them. Second, 3 specific fears that dictate everything a narcissist does. Dr. Carter mapped 7 primary fears narcissists carry across his decades of clinical work. 3 of them explain almost everything you need to understand about protecting yourself. Being exposed ranks highest. The constructed image only holds together as long as nobody examines what sits behind it. One caught lie, one pattern named out loud, one moment where the mask drops in front of an audience that was supposed to stay convinced, and the only version of themselves they know how to operate as starts unraveling. Embarrassment is survivable for most people because their identity was never built on a performance. For a narcissist, the performance and the identity are the same thing, which means exposure does not just damage reputation, it threatens existence. Being irrelevant lands almost as hard. Researcher Brené Brown once described narcissism through the lens of vulnerability as a shame-based fear of being ordinary, the terror that you will never feel extraordinary enough to be noticed, loved, or remembered. Walking into a room and realizing nobody registered your presence does not produce disappointment in a narcissist. It produces something closer to erasure, a confrontation with the one possibility the false self was specifically constructed to make impossible. Losing control over you sits at the center of nearly every interaction. People around a narcissist function as supply, living confirmation that the narcissist matters, that their version of reality holds, that their authority goes unchallenged. The instant you stop performing that role, stop defending yourself against accusations, stop reacting to provocations, stop orienting your choices around their approval, the narcissist loses the only proof they had that their influence was real. Quick side note. I picked a very specific anime character for this video's thumbnail. See if you can guess which one it is. Write it in the comments. Quick question for you. Drop a comment. Have you ever watched someone's entire demeanor change the moment they realized you stopped reacting to what they were doing? That visible shift is the fear of losing control arriving in real time, and the next part explains why one specific type of person triggers it harder than anyone else. Third, The kind of person a narcissist genuinely cannot handle. Fighting back does not scare them. Conflict is engagement, and engagement is supply, regardless of whether it arrives as anger, tears, or exhaustion. What short-circuits the entire system is a person who simply stops participating in the performance altogether. Grannon names this exact move, defying the all-important image, stopping the chase, no longer replying to calls with urgency, no longer arranging your behavior around their mood. None of that registers as an attack to the narcissist. It registers as something far worse. It communicates that they are non-essential, and that single realization is the one outcome the false self was engineered from the ground up to prevent. Boundaries land harder than arguments for the same reason. Someone arguing hands the narcissist raw material to work with. Someone who states, "That does not work for me," without justification, without emotional charge, and then simply moves forward, gives them nothing at all. No tone to interpret, no defense to dismantle, no guilt to redirect. The conversation ends exactly where you place the boundary, and that loss of editorial control over the interaction is what they organize their entire relational life around avoiding. Here is what that mechanism looks like once it plays out in a real situation. A family has operated for years around one person who sets the emotional temperature of every gathering, determining who receives praise, who absorbs criticism, who occupies what position in the unspoken hierarchy. Then one member stops engaging with the system entirely. They show up, stay polite, answer direct questions with short, neutral responses, but they no longer compete for approval, no longer flinch at provocations, no longer calibrate their mood to match the narcissist's current state. Weeks pass, and the narcissist tests harder, pushes further, reaches for tactics that used to produce reliable reactions within minutes. Nothing returns. The control that once felt effortless starts demanding visible effort, and effort is the one thing the false self was never built to require, because real authority is not supposed to look like it is trying. Now, here is what all of this means for how you handle them. Seeing their fear clearly does not require sympathizing with it to the point of excusing the damage it causes. It means understanding the machinery well enough that the tactics built on top of it stop landing the way they used to. Step 1. Train yourself to read narcissistic anger as a fear response before reacting to the surface emotion it arrives wrapped in. That single reframe repositions you from target to observer, and observers are structurally harder to manipulate than targets because they are watching the mechanism instead of being caught inside it. Step 2. Cut the supply line. Every justification you construct, every defense you mount, every visible emotional shift you display hands them something to grab and redirect back at you. Flat, factual responses carrying zero emotional charge leave them holding nothing, and nothing is the one material they have no technique for working with. Step 3. Guard the exact qualities they find most threatening in you. Your composure, your ability to read a situation without announcing what you saw, your willingness to let a conversation end on your terms instead of theirs. Those are not weapons to aim at a narcissist. They are the structural conditions that make their entire approach unable to function around you. Do not wait for the next disproportionate outburst to start recognizing the fear powering it. The very next time someone's reaction lands wildly out of scale with what actually triggered it, that gap between cause and response is the fear itself, showing you in real time exactly how fragile the system underneath has always been. Their power was never real. It only held together for as long as you believed it was. The character in this video's thumbnail is Frieza from Dragon Ball Z, the one villain in the entire series who built his empire not on strength alone, but on the absolute certainty that everyone around him existed to serve him. His rage was never about the fight itself. It was about the idea that someone beneath him refused to stay beneath him. That is narcissism distilled into a single character, and it is exactly what this video is about.